Welcome to Short Game Long Talk, a video game podcast for a hectic life. I'm Eric, joined always by my co-host Jess.
Hey.
If this is your first time listening, welcome to the show. We play short games. This time we played a game called Venba. It took, I think, each of us about an hour, hour and a half, and that was mostly because we were taking notes. We're also joined by constant companion at this point, Chris from the Nerdlies. Chris,
Hello.
how you doing?
Good. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you back as well. More importantly, we're joined by the lead developer from Versailles Games and just the driving force behind the game that we played, Abhi. How's it going, man? Welcome to the show.
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, awesome. We're excited to kind of pick your brain a bit about this. We had Remy on at the beginning of the year, and he was like, if you have me back on, I want to play Outer Wilds and bring Abhi, because that's every time we see each other, we talk about that. And I was like, well, I would like to talk to Abhi just about his game, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And so,
absolutely. Yeah,
we'll definitely have you back for that, because I am, that's like I think going to be towards our end of the year, like big game, because we tend to ramp up at the end of the year. And I don't know how else we could ramp up, because every game we've played this year has just been like good game after good game after good game. So, but yeah, this game, like I said, wasn't too long. There's no fail states or anything like that. It's very nice. It has one of the most unique looking art styles out there. Jess, what was your initial impressions? Did you know about this game beforehand? Because I know sometimes you've heard of them. Sometimes I just kind of tell you, trust me, play the game. What was it for this one?
This was another Eric saying, hey, we're playing this game. And I went, okay, cool. And just trusted you. And boy, am I glad I trusted you. I loved the game.
Knocking it out of the park. And then Chris, I know that you have a big attachment to this game, because like when I brought up the fact that I might have Abhi on the show, you were like, can I be a part of that?
Yeah, I watched this game right out as it came out. Gab Smulders had a great playthrough of the game, and I was just really very attached to the story, because obviously it's just a wonderfully paced and great story. And now getting to revisit it and play it for myself and kind of like go through the beats again was just wonderful.
Yeah, I'm very excited to hear your connection to this as we get more into it. But Chris, do you want to start off with some questions? Anything before we go just straight into the game itself?
Yeah, I guess. Well, a lot of my questions were kind of about the game, but I know that I think, Abhi, I saw an interview that said it wasn't autobiographical. This isn't a story about your family. What did it take to kind of like get together these different kind of stories to put in together for this family that you told a story about?
Yeah. I think like it's completely understandable that people think it's autobiographical. Given that it's about immigrants in Toronto, and I'm an immigrant in Toronto, so like it's quite a strong connection, and I think there's a lot of personal elements from my life that I've definitely drawn from. I think the core difference is that I came here when I was 12 years old. All right, so as a result, like I think I came at a time when I had a strong command of my language, and it's something like enough of that culture was still within me, to the point that even now, if I go back, people can't clock me as like someone who lives in Canada or who's from Canada. The only way they'll be able to tell is like I wouldn't know the directions to some place or somewhere. But if, as opposed to someone who's born here, they would be able to tell quite quickly. Okay, this person's not from here. And I think Venba's story is about um, parents who've come here long before in the 80s, as opposed to my parents who came here in 2006 when I was here at 12. In the 80s, when immigration was much less frequent, and in many ways, it was a one-way ticket, right? So, like, they're like, okay, things are bad here. We're going to leave. We're going to figure things out, and then we'll come back, is how they plan it in their head. But they never quite ever come back. And those families, when they finally do put their roots down and they have a child, how quickly that child starts assimilating at a pace that they can never quite catch up to, and the disparity that the mother and the child has is what I wanted to touch upon. And that's very different from my story or my family. But I was able to draw upon this by a lot of the friends and families that I've seen here growing up in Toronto. One distinct memory that I have is when I went to a friend of mine's place who like me is Tamil but was born here, and his mom, when I met his mom, she got very excited because she met another Tamil person who could actually speak in Tamil, and we spoke in that language, and for her it was very nostalgic, right? And but her son didn't know what we were saying, so I would translate things she said to him, and then I would translate things he said to her. And even at that age, I think it really struck me like this is really odd that a mother and a son requires like a translator, right? That's what felt very heartbreaking to me even at that age. And I think so that memory stayed with me quite a bit, and I've seen that happen a lot. And then something else that compounded that was that I noticed that a lot of the media about immigrants seem to focus on immigrant children who are assimilated here and stuff like that. But I wanted and even in that, like you could see that the immigrant child's view of their mother or father was shown rather than the parents' view itself. Like, what was it like leaving behind the country and coming here? What was it like the child has to choose between assimilating and like picking their roots, but the parents don't even have that choice. They can't even assimilate if they want to. And like that's a perspective that I felt like wasn't touched upon enough. So and when I talk to these adults or like my parents, and they would drop like very casually, they would drop like big lore about their lives where they've done like
Right.
insane things, right? And they would drop it so casually because it's like it doesn't, it's not, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, I did that, right? And like and then I moved to Canada, it's like so I just wanted to capture some of that, like what is it like to be someone back home and then no one here. And I think those are that, and a lot of the experiences from meeting different people here, as well as drawing from my own, um, is how I conceptualize it. Like it's not my story, but I'm sure I put a lot of myself into it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that that's like part of why I gravitated to the story so much, because I am first of my family born here in the United States. My parents immigrated in 1980, around the time that this story is based on. They immigrated with 3 kids already, and I was born in
Mm,
85.
mm,
So it's such a interesting perspective to go with the parents' story. I thought it was very, very effective. It was a really interesting decision and really fun story to go through.
thank you.
Yeah, that's a great way to start things off. Do we want to go directly into kind of the story and the way this game works, or Jess, did you have any questions prior to getting started?
I think all of mine can like be, yeah, all my questions are like either during or like post.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna probably end up jumping around a lot,
Yeah.
just because there's gonna things that lead to other things, and we can touch on stuff. So, this is the game itself is one big spoiler, right? It is a story based game, so everything that we're gonna talk about, aside from what I'm going to say about the gameplay, which is it's a visual novel, and then you get to cook. That's basically it. I can't. There's nothing else behind that. So if you want to go play the game, it's very good. The music's incredible. The art's incredible. The like subtleties to everything is just like nuts. Like go play it. It takes an hour. It takes an hour. Go play it and come back. Like, and then you can experience the rest of this. But this we are going to go into spoilers about everything. But yeah, this is probably one of, if not the shortest games we've played on the show. But it packs so much into it. It was so good. But yeah, it starts off with just Venba cooking. What's the first meal that's cooked in this again? Remind me.
Um,
Any.
they're called idlis.
Hmm. Right. And then yeah, this okay, now I remember. Thank you. It's basically her laying down on the couch. Venba's laying on the couch, and the dad how do you pronounce his name? I was reading it as Pavlan.
Yeah, it's Pa Balin.
Okay, okay. And he was basically like going to go to work. She's sick on the couch, and he won't make his own food. And I was like, that's very relatable to so many situations where I was like, just make your food, dude. Like, it's not that hard. But I totally like get that, especially as I've grown older and sympathize more with like just like that whole uh like relationship and being like, that's not how I want to be, right? I want to be as like independent as I possibly can, and it's more of a nicety that somebody's making me something. Um, but yeah, she ends up getting up and making the food. And yeah, that's when you're kind of introduced to the cooking mechanic, which the cooking mechanic is every game is like its own little mini game, and it's really fun to kind of like read the cookbook with like smudges or information's missing or pages are completely gone. And you know the game I think tells you in the beginning there's like no failing, like you can mess up, it's fine. And I do love that. Like that's one of my favorite things in a game where it's like you can chill, you don't have to worry about failing, right? Because sometimes that is a paralysis that happens where you're like, I don't want to mess up. And in this game, it's like you're fine, just mess up, learn. Um, and honestly, the first one did take me a while, like to get the layers right and everything like that. And I was like, okay, this is really cool, and it's fun. It emulates cooking really well to the point of like when you learn how to make something, it becomes really fun. So my question to you, Abhi, is how much of cooking is involved in your life that like inspired that whole portion, and like is it something that it's been with you your whole life, or is it something that's come recently that inspired this game?
Yeah, so I think um, I started hyperfixating on like food during university times, and I would watch like MasterChef, Kitchen Nightmares, all kinds of shows, and and once I started getting into the kitchen itself, um, I was very very interested in food, and specifically food from my culture, and uh, a lot of that and it got to the point where I had to like be like, okay, I've now watched enough recipes videos to fill a lifetime. Like, I don't need to watch more recipes. I need to start cooking more. Like, I'm never gonna catch up to this ratio that I have here. But I think it's a huge part of my life, and like food itself is a huge part of. And it's weird to say because I feel like it's a big part of everybody's life, but I get bummed out if I go to a restaurant and the food isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And um, Someone said this, like they said, "Oh, you know how people watch bad movies for good action? Abhi watches bad movies for the cooking scenes in it. Like that's I love all of that, and I love like even the culture like chefs have around food. For example, one thing I really really like is Texas barbecue,
Mm-hmm.
and not just the food, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And since the first time I laid my eyes on it, which was in the movie called Chef, where
Oh my god, that's one of my favorite movies like of all
yeah,
time. It's so good.
yeah, and it shows John Favreau's character going to Franklin's to get in a brisket, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the first time I've laid my eyes on something like that. I'm like, what is that like meteor like looking like object? And just the culture behind like cooking something low and slow for 18 hours, and they do that out of a lot of passion and love, and after Venba, I actually got to go to Texas for a road trip, and like I got to go to Franklin's and um, Terry Black's barbecue and all of these humongous places. And it was so fun to see how much passion and love they had for cooking, and they were so like happy to serve you, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like, hey, here's this thing that we really enjoy and we just want to share it with you. And I think that magic is there, and I see that a lot with my mom, or like a lot of the mothers from where I'm from, where like cooking means a lot to them. So in this game, when I wanted to bring it into a gameplay format, I wanted the focus not to be on like ranking or like failing or like anything that would like put pressure on in a different way. I wanted the player to think about what goes into a recipe, why are the recipe steps the way they are, and why they couldn't be any other way, right? So and I found like um the best way to do that is to kind of take away the steps from them and like make them think about what would go in there. And that itself got me to like thinking, researching a lot about like the food history behind these recipes. Why did they come out to be this way? And a lot of that. So I was extremely interested in food before the game. After this game, I'm like much more into it. And throughout the game, like every time I see any recipe, any new dish, I'll be like, okay, what's the history behind that? Where did that originate? And it's only something that's like continuing to stick with me even after the games come out.
Yeah, there's to sidetrack onto the chef. There's the Chef Show on Netflix, which is really good, and then I'm sure you've probably watched like all the like Ugly Delicious and things like that. Yeah, that's a quick way to burn a whole day is like watching those shows. Because they go into like the history of everything. It's so good. I love that. That's awesome. That's really cool to hear that it's so important to you going into the game, and then outside of the game it became even more important, which is so cool. Let me see. So then the next thing is it's revealed that Venba is pregnant, and then we do the time skip, which kind of leads into another question I had of just like, do you, in your mind, did you kind of write out what was happening between each of these time skips? Because the time skips can be pretty hefty in this game, where we're going like decades, it feels like sometimes. Did you write out like kind of like what's happening in the filler of that?
I think throughout the game, I wanted to give the player a feeling like they're watching this family from afar, right? And it's only during certain dishes that they cook on certain days that you get to like peek into their lives and see, like, check in with them and see like what's going on. And the days that happen in Venba, like the way I think about it, is not necessarily the most interesting days in their life. Like like even the most dramatic day when she cooks a bunch of food and like he doesn't show up, even that might be a footnote in her life. Like she has a lot of things going on in her life. But for this, there's a ultimately it's a very low key story. I feel like it's about something that happens within a family. And the main thing for me was that it needs to be told through food, through cooking. Um, but you're not going to be cooking every single day that something important happens or something like that. So that was the thought process for me. So that already made it that like for me most of the story should be told through the time skips also, like even with cuts, even by leaving a lot of things unsaid, I feel like you can convey a lot. And just focus on the days that they do cook, why are they cooking this particular dish and what are the feelings around it, and what can we push through that. But yeah, I had to answer your question, I had a bunch of ideas or like thoughts or like even like um, other ways to kind of hint at what happened, like um, show, for example, the dad is a writer, show a bit of his diary maybe, and like show what he writes every single day and stuff like that also. But ultimately, I did feel like a lot of that was not necessary, and I wanted to focus fully on the core story.
Awesome. Okay. And then the one of the things I wanted to bring up was the I thought it was very funny. So my own background is I one of the reasons I wanted Chris on this episode is because I know he connected to the story so deeply and more like one to one. In my life, I'm married to a Hispanic woman. She's first generation. Jess is also another first generation from on her mom's side. And one of the things that Kayvon like talks to his dad about is jokingly saying that he could watch more cartoons with him. My father-in-law, Jess's uncle, literally like learned English in Georgia by watching Looney Tunes. So like, was that something that you like were cognizant of as something that's like was connected to you directly, or is that something that like you'd heard from somebody else?
No, so growing up in India, like my English was quite good. And and I would watch like Cartoon Network and everything. And I think my mom's English wasn't very good. And when she came here, she would often like regret, maybe I should have watched cartoons with you also. She would attribute that to that, and that's where that came from. But yeah, like I think, like I learned English at school, but the personality behind English, I couldn't have learned it unless I watched cartoons or movies and stuff like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
otherwise, I think I would have sounded like characters from a book that were written a while ago because that was my only exposure. But how certain words are used, or how certain words are phrased, those kind of clued me in. The first couple of years that I was here, I was like, okay, I know what to do. I've seen this in the show. I've seen this, you know. But yeah, that I think that line almost entirely came from my mom. Yeah,
I love that.
You kind of forget how much like language happens with pop culture.
Yeah,
like when you speak it all the time, like pop culture and AVE and all that stuff intertwines with how we speak and use the language, and you kind of forget like, oh, you can learn on paper what this sounds like or whatever, but not how it's spoken or how it's used. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Especially like because you learn rules, right? But in pop culture, you learn how it's stretched, how the rules are broken, and why they need to be broken and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's the same thing with me learning Spanish for my mom. When I was younger, we would watch like my favorite TV shows in Spanish, or like whenever we'd go down to Mexico, we wouldn't like stream Netflix. We would watch whatever like was broadcasting so that I would like learn the grammar and learn how the kids use their slang.
Yeah.
Even now, I'm in a French class, and my French teachers are like, "Hey, this is how it's supposed, like how it's written in the rules. But go watch this TV show. You'll learn that it's not how like people actually speak it."
Yeah.
So I love that part of like using the media to learn more.
Yeah. It's definitely like super important. Then you also have the age thing too. Like between me, Chris, and Jess, I think it's like literally almost equidistance our ages apart from each other.
Yeah.
And like we're gonna share some common phrases, but like also we're gonna have some things that we say that like the other ones do not say. So it is very interesting. So, but my question about cartoons is like, what was the one that you felt like taught you the most, like from that time growing up? Do you have one that stood out that you were like, I learn a lot of English specifically from this show?
Yeah, I think let me see. So weirdly, I think Johnny Bravo was the one.
I was really hoping you were gonna say that for some reason. I was
That's a good one. That's a great one.
Right? Because I think because everything else is like too far removed, like Samurai Jack or Dexter's Laboratory or something like that. But I think it's Johnny Bravo is not a cartoon that I understood or like enjoyed the most, but definitely gave me a lot of insight into like the culture. Right. And even then I could understand, even at that young age, I could understand, it's satirical in its elements, and it's like kind of making fun of certain types of people. And it's really good to like know what not to do, or like what will get made fun of, especially when you're going into like a brand new culture and they're like completely terrified, of coming
And
across
especially as a kid.
As a kid,
like that's the most ruthless time for your life. It seems like
Yeah.
people will absolutely catch if you don't understand a phrase and
Yeah.
just ruin you for it.
Absolutely.
And then another thing I observed that kind of stood out because like I said, this game is very subtle. The English being in yellow text, and then sometimes having some blurriness to it or some grime on it, because we're listening to everything through Venba at this point, is such a nice detail. I love that, like, because it's a game that doesn't have voice acting. There's no voice acting. It's all, everyone has like their own type of speech and everything like that, but it's so subtle to be like, oh, that looked weird. Why did that look weird? And then you like pick up these patterns. And I thought that was such a nice touch. So I gotta like compliment on that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, of course. That stuff, like, I love just picking up on the subtlety there. Um, let me see. Oh yeah. So the next thing I was going to talk about was the park scene. But do you guys have any other questions before we go into like one of the darker parts of the game itself?
I kind of wanted to bring up just a little bit because we were talking about the art style of the game. Because as we go into it, we have this very, it felt very hand drawn, and it felt like it had a lot of inspiration. I think you said in an interview before, like you've been talking about Cartoon Network, that it was inspired by like you and Sam, I think is the artist. Were inspired by like Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, that type of style. But you wanted to have your own kind of stylistic version of that. I just wanted to see, like, did you give him kind of full creative freedom in creating the look, and also what was like your feedback once you started getting art back? Like, were you just pleasantly surprised and there was like no changes, or was there a little bit of tweaking here and there?
Yeah. So I will say the art direction is like 110% Sam's department and his choices, and he's a humongous fan of Kendi Tartakovsky, who worked on shows like Samurai Jack and recently Primal, and not just the art style but also the animation, the way Sam approaches it, I think is very very good. But So Sam and I used to work at this mobile game studio where we made like free to play games. I was a entry level developer. He was an entry level artist. And like immediately I think like we really connected and we're like, okay, when do we get to make our own game? And it's in these conversations that like Venba came across. But a lot of people wanted to make their own games in that studio. And Sam was like highly sought after. So but I think he connected because he's from Indonesia, and he connected to the story very strongly. When I texted him like a very small scene to like pitch him like, this is the kind of game that I want to make, and here's something that happens in that story. And he's like, he was immediately on board. So I think from the get go, he took a lot of effort to understand what kind of game this is, and like he understood that his style is very outlandish, very stylized, very suited for like an action game, but with that kind of exaggeration and all of that, right? But like bringing that to something much more grounded. The story is very grounded. I think it created like a really good match somehow, and in some ways, I think it also tricks people, which we don't mean to, but like it gives off a very like friendly like, oh, it's just a cooking game with the like really bright colors, and I think people aren't quite ready for the gut punch that the story sometimes can be. But to answer your question about like whether there was feedback or not, I think he really is somebody I work super well with across the entire studio. Like him and I are usually on the same page about a lot of things very quickly, and I'm very very blessed to have someone like that. But I think the only thing he needed to understand was once again just the culture, and those kind of things you can't just say like do this or do that. Like you can't give instructions. You kind of have to like talk around it, and okay, certain expressions Venba wouldn't make, or certain actions Pavlin wouldn't do. Like even though a certain walk animation can change Venba from an Indian woman to feeling like she's from America, and it's really weird to explain. And those things, I think he was patient with me. I took him to like South Indian restaurants. We watched like a bunch of movies together. I would send him like clips and songs, and it was kind of like almost like a bottom up approach instead of a top down approach. And I think like he needed that, and he was very willing for that. And when it came to the food, also like I made sure like either he was there with me when we cooked any recipe that was shown in the game, so that like he could get a full sense of it. Like especially like certain moments. When do I get excited when I'm cooking it? Like what are the moments where I'm like, okay, it's coming together. Like what is that, and what does that look like visually? Like he needed to see those things, I think. So those are areas he was able to like understand my emotion. So I didn't ever tell him like draw it like this. I instead I'm like, this is what I'm trying to convey emotionally, and he was really good at taking that and then converting that into the art style.
Yeah, pointing out that it was like inspired by, Samurai Jack and all that. I like pulled up an image and was like, yeah, yeah, it's like so obvious now
Yeah.
because like there's no like hard outlines or anything like that. Like there's I don't know what art it's from, but it's a picture of Pavlan, Venba, and Kavin like all like brushing their hair or whatever, and the Kavin's like smiling, and I'm like, yeah, that's literally like the Dexter's Lab like Samurai Jack like style smile. So that's really cool to just be like, yeah, you can totally pinpoint his inspiration. Yeah, he did a fantastic job. Like this is
yeah.
one
Yeah,
of the
we got to
most
sing
unique.
Sam's praises quite a bit for
Yeah, very lucky to
how
have
he
him.
made all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my like first note was, "Oh, this is so cute."
Yeah.
Like was just so visually pleasing. And your comment about like it made for the gut punch to be stronger definitely hit. I think I wrote like 10 in my notes. Like there's like at least 5 different parts where I was like, is someone cutting onions in here?
Mhm. No, I definitely like knew. I was like, okay, this is an immigrant story. I am empathetic to immigrant stories. I know of like where those can go in some place. So I was like kind of prepared for the heaviness, but it went way heavier. And there's a point where I can talk to that I like specifically related to like almost exactly that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this got to a really heavy part, but it was all very well done. Because there's never any like the game can get sad, but it's never like lingering in it, which I think is really nice. Like it, like you said, this isn't like showing the most, you know, fantastical bits of their day. This is just the mundanity of this family. That sometimes something crazy happens, and sometimes they just build a rocket ship style food that entertains the sun, right? Like it goes all over the place, and I thought that was super well done. I thought the conversations with with Venba and her son trying to like make those connections and things like that. You can tell how hard she's trying to reach out, and you can also tell how hard he wants to be just a kid from Canada, right? Like he doesn't want to be a kid from India. He wants to be a kid from Canada because that's where he lives. And I thought that was very well done. But one speaking of like the darkness, the scene of the the dad Pavlon like getting he was assaulted. He didn't show up on time. Like Venbo was calling the office and everything like that. Showing I think Chris talked to me about like relating to this, like translating over the phone with the worker, kind of trying to figure out where the dad was. There's like this panic that builds up inside you, and then as just the slow shot of Venba walking quicker and quicker as she sees him and stuff, it was just like that was like direction masterclass. Like it was so subtle, and you're working in a two-dimensional space with very simplistic drawings where it's like you're not super detailed or anything like that, and it was just like it was super well done. And leading up to it, one of my favorite shots was like the scan over Pavlon's like name tag, and it's a completely different name because like they don't care enough to know his real name. I was like, damn, that was some really well done stuff. And then the going home to like writing, like she says that he doesn't write anymore because nothing bothers him. He's not bothered about it, and he got bothered obviously, so he started writing. And I thought that was incredible. Um, one question I did have, and it might have just not been clear to me, was the teaching rejection letters. Was that Venba was receiving those basically at the end of every chapter when she was ending the night in bed? Was that in Canada that those were she was being rejected?
Yeah, I think definitely maybe we could have done a better job communicating that. I think the idea was that she was a supply teacher, and she's trying to make the move to being a permanent teacher, like given a classroom, which is what she really wants.
Mhm.
And that's something that she keeps getting rejected for in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it wasn't unclear. It was towards the end when she like, we're in spoiler territory, moves back to India and she's teaching.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, wait, was she trying to get a job in India the whole time? That was
Gotcha.
the
Yeah,
only
yeah,
thing.
for
But
sure.
no, the first impression was basically being like, oh, okay, yeah, she's trying to get a job to be permanent
Yeah.
in Canada, which, yeah, as somebody who's like, I was on a teaching path at one point in my life.
Yeah.
The way she talks about the way she interacts with kids and makes it fun and everything like that, I was like, that's how I taught. And the fact that like if I was in a place where they didn't allow me to teach, and the way like I could connect a little bit with that being like, if you're not allowed to teach the way that you're meant to teach, right? Because
Right.
if I were to move to Mexico and teach in Spanish, I obviously would lose all of my like comfortability with the language and the way that I actually like was able to connect with kids and stuff. So that was, I thought, was super well done as well. And then yeah, then we go straight from that basically. I think there might be like one other thing in between, but we go from the scene in the park to then the dad dying, which again, I'm assuming so with the art direction with
I think
Sam was
we do scene in the park, him
yeah.
going to college.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the college stuff, I lived with my mom until I was 27 and went to school 10 minutes from my house. So would somebody else like to take this part where you moved out away from college in connection with that?
As a college student, I mean, I can.
Yeah.
I I was so very upset. I think in my notes it's like in all caps. Yeah, I said, "Oh my God, you're gonna regret not taking that food."
Mhm.
Because as a kid, as like whose mom is an immigrant who like shows her love through cooking, like when she dropped me off for spring break, she gave me three things of sopa de fideo, which is like a soup, and I immediately she was like, I made a lot, but like here you go, and I was like, I will take it,
Mhm.
and then I played the game, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I took my mom's soup. But like that was a thing, like just to go back a little bit, that I kind of related with Kevin and kind of didn't at the same time. Because when I was in elementary school, I definitely had the like, I don't want to take, like, all my friends at school are eating pizza and chicken nuggets, and I'm over here with like a torta de jamon or something. And don't give me that face.
It's
People
so
made fun of
good.
me for it,
I know, but now they're stupid. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's so much better.
right? But then as I got older, I like embraced the culture, which like that's a whole nother thing.
Mhm.
But Kevin goes off. Kevin is
Yeah.
Kevin goes off to college, and it's like 2 hours away or something like that. Or
Yeah.
yeah, it's 2 hours away, which is the same distance from my college to my
Mhm.
hometown, which is another thing where I was like, just let your parents take you, because he was like, no, I'm gonna drive with my friends.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing. Like, I know from my mom's perspective how difficult it is to see like your child go away to college 2 hours away. And he basically ditches his parents who are willing to make the like round trip back. And he doesn't take their food, and he like has the like ashamed, like feels ashamed of how like the food smells and stuff. But yeah.
Did
Yeah,
you have that personal experience, Abhi, about like taking food to school and having people kind of turn their nose up at it?
Yeah, yes and no. I think like so first of all, I think like I'm really happy like you don't relate to that experience. And it's something I wonder um if people who immigrated here earlier would experience a lot more than now, right? And it's like because now I think, wait, you don't like Indian food? Like what's wrong with you? It's almost
yeah.
Yeah.
kind of the consensus. And that was very different when I went to school for sure, right? Like, and that wasn't that long ago. So like it's things change quite rapidly, I think. But I think when I went to school, it weirdly, I think once again I saw the hiding of lunches, or I saw the hesitation to bring out their lunches from other kids more so than myself.
Mm.
When I brought my in, um, I was in Halifax, which is in the first year I was in Canada. I was in Halifax, which is in a province called Nova Scotia, and there I was the only I think only immigrant student in my school. Um, so there they were completely not used to the kind of foods or that I had in my lunch. And at first, yeah, they did turn up their noses at it. It looked different, looked strange. But it was also very spicy. So I kind of, by sticking with it, I kind of won them over because they would do like spice eating challenges with mine, right? And like sometimes they would just gather at my table just to watch me eat it. Like, how is he eating it? It's a magic trick, you know. It was like, uh, and but in their own way, they were partaking in whatever I had. Like, there was that initial bump that I had to like get through, right? And there were people who thought it was disgusting that did wear one over, right? But I also think that for Kevin, I may not relate to the food part, but I do relate to like when I went to high school. My high school was like right out across my apartment with my parents and everything. And the idea of my friends seeing my parents
Yeah.
or my parent like was like somehow the worst. Like it was, like extremely embarrassing. And I was just like, I need to like if I run into them in the vicinity of
Yeah.
school, I'm like, I'm not talking to you until like get inside the home. It was like
I
that part,
definitely
yeah.
to that point, just to interject, like when I was in high school and junior high and all that stuff, like it was it always felt novel because I was born out here in LA, and being an Asian American in LA is much different than being an Asian American in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
So we moved to Arizona when I was like 7 and grew up there. So every time I got on the phone with my parents at a friend's house, it was like event listening. Like
Yeah.
everybody would stop and listen to me speaking Cantonese to my parents because they'd never heard anything like that before.
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
always like super self-conscious about it
Yeah.
because I'm speaking my language to my parents and they're loud, so it's not like they're trying to yell at me or anything, but they're just loud people, and everybody's
Yeah.
listening in on the conversation.
Yeah.
So it's like you're just very self-conscious and know that you're different because there's so many people, so many eyes on you.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Right. And I think, and a lot of that is like, I'm sure if it wouldn't have been the worst thing if my friends saw me interact with my parents, it wouldn't have changed the thing, right? But I think it felt very drastic for me, and I think for Kevin, it was a chance to restart. And he's like, "No, you can't. Like, this is supposed to be at least the way I intended it. Is like he didn't need to move away. He didn't need to move out to go to a different university, but he picked one that was far just so he could do that. And so for him, like the whole point is that I'm getting away from this. So like I don't need you to like be here. And I think there's one experience I think where like I did take like this thing called lemon rice to my school, like to my university a lot for lunch, and it was very pungent. So when you open it, it's like a waft of smells, and I would always kind of like I would be very self-conscious of that. So I would open it like I had like this. I had my best friend throughout university, and like pretty much every class we would go together. So like he was always around me when I was eating that. So when I would open it, I would like kind of like try to air it out first, and then like open it. I was a little self-conscious, and through the 4 years, he didn't say a single thing, right? And then after we graduated, we went to Japan as like a trip, and we are just talking about food and everything. And then out of nowhere, he just looks at me and he's like, "You know that yellow thing you would eat all the time? It always smells so good." It's
Uh,
like, right? And I'm like, whoa, like every insecurity, like the reality that I had constructed was
yeah.
purely within my own brain. Like it's not. anything that he put up on it. Right. So I think those are the kind of things that I want to touch upon with that scene.
Yeah, that I thought that was really good. And I mean, yeah, that's so interesting to think like, yeah, the whole time, right? You were kind of technically depriving him, right? He's like, "Oh, that smells really good," and you
Yeah.
were just giving him like a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And,
Like, why am I being so shifty about it? Like,
yeah,
You don't want to give him the gold.
Yeah.
You can't give up this gold of a rice.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny, right? It doesn't matter what culture you grow up in. You don't want to.
Yeah.
Your parents embarrass you, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
me and Jess have a very similar like thing of our parents worked in our schools,
Oh,
and
wow.
everyone knew my mom, and I couldn't go out with my mom without her saying hi to everyone. And
Right.
so luckily my mom's very cool, and I eventually came around to that. But like at the time you're like, God, I don't want my parents shouldn't exist to you. Like, you know, you don't want
Yeah.
anybody to know you have parents.
Right.
Like, so
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it was so weird for in my experience, because my mom and I like may look face alike, but I'm very like white passing and my mom is
Right.
like very brown. And people would be like, "Hey, you guys have the same last name. That's weird." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's because she's my mom."
yeah.
But
Right.
I couldn't even like not get away from her. I love my mom and I've always loved my mom, but like she was a teacher's assistant in my math class.
Oh,
So
no.
I couldn't even like, you know, take a step away and be like, "Oh yeah, she's in a grade below or a grade above." Like she was constantly there every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
My
that's
mom
difficult. Yeah.
my mom was the noon supervisor for like recess and lunch. So like I didn't even get away from her while I was like playing. She was just there. So I think it's a very universal experience. But you know, as you grow up, you're like, why was I like that? It's so dumb,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
As embarrassing as our parents probably were, right? Like they probably were, but you're like, it's so dumb to think like that. Um, but yeah, the next part, he goes away to college, and then we get another. That's what I was going to ask is with the art. You said is that all Sam, including like the shots, or are you giving him direction on like? Because I'm going to touch on the scene of just the shot of Pavlon's glasses to kind of signify that he's passed away. Is that something that you directed him to, or is it something that he came up with once you told him the story?
Yeah, no. Shots and everything is like I would usually storyboard,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be like, okay, this is what I want here. Even that mirror photo where they're all brushing their hair,
Mm-hmm.
it's something I drew very primitively. I would like three circles and all of that. But he would take it and he would elevate it into something else, and the framings that he would find would be a lot better than the framings that I would storyboard as, and that's what I trust him to do. But I know like from my kind of culture, like a little bit of an altar for a person who is incredibly important
Mm-hmm.
is something that they would do. And those are the kind of things that Sam needs like notes and input from me on.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably been something like, hey, I need a shot like this, and I want it to like hold like this for this emotion. And Sam would either be like, cool, and he would do it, or he would ignore me and do something else. And I would be like, okay, yeah, that's better. But yeah, usually that's how it goes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that scene was the panning shot into the glasses. I was like, no, like,
Yeah.
you're just like, because what's so funny is like I've known these characters for like 35 minutes at this point, and I'm like so bummed, right? Like I've had almost zero interaction with anybody outside of Venba and Kevin, and like I'm so bummed that the dad has passed away because like it just sucks. It's done so well. So that's why I wanted to know. Like, yeah. So it's a nice combination. Having that trust with an artist is really important.
Yeah.
I've been going to the same tattoo artist for like 12, 13 years now, and you saying that you have a very rudimentary like drawing, that's exactly I'm like I take a picture of myself, I doodle on my phone and then send it to her, and she comes back with like this masterpiece, and I'm like, how did you do that? So I like
Yeah.
totally get
Yeah.
that. I love that relationship you can have with an artist and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
tattoo artist trust is a whole nother level of trust. So I'm glad you have that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a long time. I like now when I'm in a different state, and I'm like, I'll drive the 6 hours to come see you because it's my body. You know, I kind of
Yeah.
need that to be correct. But yeah, we follow up with we find out that Pavlon has passed away, and then we go into one of the most fun parts of the game. You get to cook the whole spread. You get to cook this amazing spread. Was any of this specifically some of your favorite food, or was your favorite food included in this game?
Yeah, the level before with the beef biryani
Mhm.
was my favorite. I think of the things shown, but like biryani in general is very popular, but beef biryani is one of my favorites, and that's definitely something I wanted to show. And but for this one, um, it's this is also one of my favorite. Like even though she's cooking a bunch of different dishes,
Mhm.
we also call this something called full meals, and it's something that you get on a banana leaf,
Mm.
and you get served in restaurants and stuff like that with a banana leaf. And the idea is um, like you eat it and then you like take a nap after. Like that's right.
That's a great way to do it.
And even when she arranges, she doesn't have a banana leaf, obviously, but when she arranges the dishes at the table, it does take like that kind of form.
Mhm.
And so it's the idea is like it's a feast, and it's it has a bit of an appetizer, it has a bit of a a rice and salad element, but it also has a bunch of like meat dishes and all of
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I was like mad in this game. Was she goes through all that work, the sun goes
Yeah.
down, and he doesn't show up. Um,
I love
which
like you said, the gaming part of it, the cooking part of that, because there was so much momentum between
Mhm.
Yeah.
dishes. Like as
Yeah.
soon as you cooked one, there was like a nice, fun, like swish transition to the next meal. It was that perfectly laid little thing to get to that emotional of like, I did all this work
Mhm.
and he's not gonna show up. What the hell?
Yeah, and on top of that, the music being like perfectly synced with everything.
Oh
Like the
yeah,
Yeah.
music in this is absolutely nuts. Um,
Yeah, thank you. I will say the music, not only is it synced, the composer also came up with the idea that he wrote the lyrics for all the songs also.
mhm.
For this song specifically, every dish as you cook, the lyrics actually describe the recipe of the thing that you're
Oh,
cooking.
that's so sick.
Uh,
wow,
and we even try to like so if it's something like if it's like spinning the thing, the lyrics will say mimic your action as best as it can. So it's kind of like the player and the game is working together to kind of create this musical feeling. It's
that's
something
wild.
That
I
is
love
so
that.
So
cool.
cool.
Yeah, that whole scene super fun. Then you find out that he's not showing up, and then you scroll through the texts, and so this is where I connected the most. On the opposite side, my mom is a widow. My dad passed away about 10, 11 years ago, and I am 6 hours away from my mom. I see my mom constantly. I take her out for stuff, for holidays, for all that kind of stuff. And seeing that he does not, I was
yeah.
livid. I was like, I don't care like what your relationship with your parents are, as long as it's not on the point where you're not speaking, which it's clearly not. Like she's texting him like every several days, and like it's been it gave the impression that they haven't seen each other in like years. Was that like correct in that assumption?
Yeah, yeah, it's been like getting rarer and rarer throughout the
Mhm.
years, to the point where it was getting that infrequent towards the end for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, man. And especially as we're playing as Venba, right? So we're like, what a dick. He's
Yeah,
not hanging out
yeah.
with us. Like so it's like doubly so. And yeah, I was just like, it's so important to be there for family and stuff. And especially when, that's her only kid and she's alone and she's in a place where she doesn't really want to be there anymore. Um, and then the next scene is we play as Caven, and I was like, oh, what's happening? I was worried for a second that Venba had died, and I was like, I can't handle this anymore. I was like, but yeah, that scene I thought was very cool because now we're kind of just in his world. You know, he's an adult.
Yeah.
You know, how is he handling post college? How is he handling his life as an immigrant that's now grown, or as a son of immigrants that's now grown up. And I think Chris, you had some stuff you connected with this whole scene.
I just wanted to say the scene of him talking to the person on the phone, the text messages about the project that he wants to work on or they want him to work on. And it's a really interesting scene of how inclusion works for certain people's minds, right? Some people think that inclusion is just visibility, but he's fighting for a specificity and stuff like that. And I think the way that it's presented was so interesting. And obviously I felt very connected to it because as a person who grew up, I'm first generation here, I definitely went through that situation where I want to be in the assimilation part of it, where like I kind of don't think about the cultural side of things or whatever. But now I'm definitely more on the side of like I need to learn about my stuff. And I think that the way that he wrote about it and then deleted was like how I would have treated it at that time, when you're just realizing like, hey, this is actually part of my life. Like this is very important to me. I want to do this right and do it the way that it would represent me and my what I would really want to input into this. And I just thought that was a very interesting specificity. And I know you said one time, like I watched an interview where you talked about a filmmaker that you like, and his quote was, "The more local you are, the more international you become."
Yeah.
Which I thought that feels mind blowing. I'd never heard that before,
Yeah.
but like the fact that you brought in all this Tamil culture that isn't just general Indian culture, it felt very important to the story. Like how early on in the process were you that like I have to bring in my specific things into the story?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think that was it was not something I consciously decided. Like it was something that felt very obvious to me. And it's only something like having seen how much that decision has worked. It's only something that's validated for me through and through. And I think like that quote, I must have seen it at a very young age because I've really internalized it. Because I think it also makes sense. Because I think apart from the morality of like showcasing your culture properly and like not diluting it and all of those things, I just feel like you're giving up on really good world building if you really good lore if you don't make it specific, right? Like you have all of this real world lore that's much better than anything you can write, and all you have to do is like hint at it and showcase it, and like it's the same reason why like any good fantasy author I feel like wouldn't explain the world to you but let you discover it slowly. They would introduce concepts to you and you're like, what's that? Why do people keep saying that? Oh, that's what this means, right? And then slowly, like 3 chapters in, you'll figure that out. So if people can do that about made up worlds, and that's good writing, then we should definitely do that about like real worlds, right? But like for some reason I think like when we are representing our own cultures, we get a little worried that okay, we have to make sure that no one is turned off by it. Shouldn't feel foreign to anybody and all of that.
Right.
And in that we kind of sanitize it too much. I feel like sometimes and like strip it out of its like in trying to make it accessible. I think we like really make it sanitized. And what I found is like the opening of every level starts with a little poem, and these poems are written by this poet over 2,000 years ago, and they are also it's a form of poetry, and those poems are also called Venbas, right?
Oh.
So, and to me, a Venba is a short poem, and to me, this game is a short poem about these three people. And I never explain what that poem is, or like in the beginning, what I'm showing are poems or any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen people on Reddit like post in Tamil subreddits that I am part of. They post like, "Hey, where can I read more about this? I've learned that this is a thing." And like these are people who are not from the culture, right? And like I didn't tell them, but they're finding it on for their own. And I think like it just makes it much more satisfying, much more real when you do things like that. I think like it's I realized I think so those were parts that came easy to me, but there are other parts where I slipped up. And I was like, when the game was getting popular and popular, even before launch, I realized that okay, this might be the first introduction to like summer people on a video game medium. Because I literally searched like Tummer in Steam, and like Venba is the only game that showed up, right? So,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm ready for that because I think I started this game as like a fun side project with my friend, but now it's becoming something bigger. So am I doing really everything I can to truly represent Tamil cuisine? So then I started to think about like, okay, are idlis the best I can do to like show off Tamil cuisine? Should I like I have 7 levels? I should be
Yeah.
picking, um, and I realized like that's not like I was going through those dark paths of design where I was trying to make it like a comprehensive um, tourist book, so that everybody can walk in and walk out with a oh, now you learned about Tamil culture, like and I quickly realized I think that that's not why I wanted to tell the story. I wanted to tell the story because it's about these characters, and I should not try to like make it accessible, because when I do that, I compromise on the story itself. Because this is not an educational tool. This is not a
Yeah.
right. And another big source of inspiration on how to do that for me was like anime, because I, I'm reading Hikaru no Go as a 13-year-old, and it's about this ancient board game, and I'm now going to websites learning how to play just because I was so inspired, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so if they can do things like that, then we should also be able to do it. It's kind of and like I realized anime specifically, like that's a very big example of like a medium that was created for Japan first and then exported
Yep.
overseas. But I saw like in the West being the second market for once, and but still like trying their learning Japanese on the side, traveling to Japan, and like
Mm.
doing all of those things. So like I do believe we are all capable of that. So and then I kind of self correct and focus back on like okay, let me focus on what recipes make most sense for the story and like try to focus on that and tell that story sincerely. Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
think
think.
that's like the trappings of like cultural storytelling, right? Like
Yeah.
especially like you said in the West,
Yeah.
we feel like we're the only one who like when you get a chance to tell that story, now
Yeah.
it's like it's not just about you, it's about the entire culture.
Yes. Yeah.
When the focus should be what's the story you wanted to tell. Like
Yeah.
you can give those details and the details are about you and your culture and all that stuff and how you experienced it doesn't actually mean that you have to represent every single piece
Yes.
of
Yeah.
everybody. And I think that's, like the way that you did it is perfect. It's so like it's so specific, but obviously the story itself is so relatable to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. No, I think you put it really well. And I think that's the mind shift I had to go through. Like Venba is a representation, it's not representative. And like
Mhm.
but like I was approaching it as if it was because it was the like I almost see it like a canvas and there's like a drop, right? And but there's supposed to be many drops.
Yeah.
But right now there's only one drop. But that's not my preference,
Yeah.
right? And yeah. And eventually when there's so many other games, right? Like this is what I keep saying. Like I can't wait till, Venba becomes irrelevant because of there's so many other more specific South Asian cooking games going like going even deeper, going even more specific than I did. And like then I think this weight that I feel about like, okay, did I show everything correctly would be less. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just important that this is a story about a family that just happened to be
Yes.
like of
Yeah.
that culture. It's not doesn't have anything to do with like you're coming in, you're telling a story. That's all it
Yeah.
is. And it just
Yeah.
happens to have certain elements that sometimes it's touched upon, but in a way that's like I thought, the connection to anime is like, I watch animes and I'm like, maybe I should go camping. Like, like I haven't been camping in 15 years. Maybe I should go camping. Like, it's just because I watched a thing and I was like, yeah, that's really interesting. So,
Which anime made you want to go camping? I'm just
laid back camp.
Nice.
Yeah, they make it look so nice and cold and cozy, and I was like, I should go camping. Flagstaff's not that far. It's cold there. I should go. And so like, that's really funny. And like, I think you had mentioned you want to make all this food now, right?
Yes. Like seeing that the cookbook is accessible, like I want to like when I have a full kitchen to myself, because right now I'm operating out of a community kitchen shared with like 500 people on the same floor. But like once I have my own like full kitchen back at home, I want to like try to make all these foods and like see how it actually like tastes, because like it looked so good. I think hold on, I think I'm hungry. Yeah, my note, literally one of my bullet points is I'm hungry now.
Yeah.
Because I played it on an empty stomach because I was like, oh, well, it's just a little hour and then no problem. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so hungry.
That's dangerous. Yeah, the food looks incredible. One of my favorite ones that like sticks with me is the fish. When you cut the fish, like I don't even like fish very much, but you cut the fish and you put the sauce in and then splatter it all over. I was like, this is the most satisfying thing. It was like the simplest one. And I was like, this is so nice.
On a technical perspective, my favorite food animation is also the fish, because Sam did that, and like how satisfying he made it to like slice into it, like how it opens up, and it's a 2D sprite, but it flips and stuff like that, and he kind of sells it. And when you like rotate or like skew 2D sprites, they look very ugly. So we were actually wondering, should we go 3D for this one? And he's like, okay, let me take a crack at it. And like, he's a phenomenal
Yeah, man, that's crazy. It was.
I think the big difference. I was just gonna say, like, we were playing a cooking game, and not a lot of cooking games come with a cookbook. So, like, what sparked that? Was that early on in development that you decided to put in a cookbook, or was it like, oh, we're making all these cultural foods, we should let people try it at home?
Yeah, I think definitely. I was very adamant from the beginning that it's not a cooking simulator or it's not a cooking teaching guide, because making a simulator is a lot of work. If I start thinking about like controlling heat, and it's not the type of gameplay I wanted to create either. But people are like, so I was very adamant about that. And the audience, I think after the game released, they were like, oh, that's totally fine. It's fine that it's not cooking, but we just want to cook these recipes. Like it didn't come from like a place of demand. It just came from a place of like they just wished that it existed. And we mostly did have recipes already. That like that I would start with. Like every recipe in the game was a working recipe that I would test to make sure that it's sane, and then we would like convert it into like puzzle elements. So it's like, okay, we already have them, so why not do it? And we had a food consultant, who early on when I designed puzzles and I showed it to her, like she would see the recipe that's like all tattered up. She would dismiss it. She would not look at any of the hints. She just knows the steps, and it would just work, right? So playtesting with her is always a bit annoying, but like she was the one who uh, consulted in all the recipes and the accuracies and stuff like that. And we're like, okay, you should just write the full cookbook for the recipes that are shown in the game. She was super excited. So it was something we already had. We just had to like archive and compile it into a cookbook format. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's what a positive like interaction with your fans. Like they're like, "Can you give us a cookbook?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure." Like
Yeah.
Yeah, because that really did stand out to me when I opened the thing. I was like, All right, there's a recipe thing. I'm not going to click on that because I haven't played the game yet, and I don't want any spoilers like of anything. So I was like, but that's cool that it's there. It's like one of my first notes that I was like, oh, that's so cool that it has like an actual recipe on the menu, on the main menu. That's so cool. But any other things that we want to talk on, or do we want to talk about the closing scenes?
I have a quick like question because I know you said that your favorite like dish was the beef biryani, but is there like a dish that's like your favorite to make, or is it still the beef biryani?
Oh man, it's a good question. Dosas are a lot of fun to make. Because they're so versatile. I think biryani and dosa scratch the same itch for me because it's like, um, they're very modular. Because it's biryani is rice and meat, and dosa is like very topping friendly. So they're what I call like carriers for like clearing my fridge meals. So like, I'm like,
Those are the
okay,
best. Those are
yeah.
the best.
I love
So
that
I'm like,
description.
Yeah.
That's great.
Take
like,
everything, shove it right into the
yeah, I'm
bowl.
like, wait, this is actually fire, like,
Yeah.
I did not. uh,
Exactly.
and I think in the beginning of my cooking, when I started to cook, I'd be like, I would look up a recipe, buy the exact ingredients. And if even one was missing, I'm like, I can't make this. But that has changed into like now I'm very improvisational. Like okay,
Mhm.
if none of this, I'll substitute this. And I think both of them bring out that from me. So I really like both of them. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's the mark of a like it's the bell curve, right? Where
Yeah.
you're starting out and you're making terrible mistakes and using the wrong things, and then at the top of that bell curve you're like an expert and you make everything down to the T, and then you're
Yeah.
back down and you're even more experienced and you're like, no, I can just make it with whatever, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
I can throw in I was just cooking it wrong before. I was
Yeah.
right by experimenting with stuff. I was just burning it. Like there's a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's really, really cool. But that last scene of Kevin going to Venba in India, having that conversation, him being lost, he's left his job, done all that stuff, and it just was so nice and real. Like it felt like inconclusive but good. Like you
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
like we're just taking a little snapshot of this family's life,
Yeah.
and there's tons and tons and tons of years and days and moments and everything like that, and we've maybe spent like an actual hour with them total,
Yeah.
and
It's so
just the
lovely, like you
Mhm.
said, there's no like super conclusion to it
Yeah.
because they're both in a spot where, they're kind of rediscovering who they are.
Yeah.
Venba's home getting to teach the way that she wanted to teach, and Kevin's kind of like finally taking a grip on like who he is as a person.
Yeah.
And I like that it ends with this conversation of like, what do you think you're gonna do? I don't know. What do you think you're
Right.
gonna do? I don't know. Like I
yeah,
I love that because it's like that's real. You don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, that it was just, the direction in this is so well done, and I went from like being so mad at this guy
Yeah.
like 10 minutes ago, where I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
hang out with your mom. And then he flies to India because
Yeah.
he regrets not spending time with his mom. And it was just nice to be like, when it comes to family, when it's not some crazy circumstance, you can always go back, right?
Yeah.
Like you can
Mm.
always make that reconnection, especially with parents, as long as, bridges aren't absolutely torched, you know, they're gonna be there for you, which
Yeah.
was so nice. But that's the end of the game. Like it's just this nice little. It felt so real, and as somebody who I am surrounded by immigrant stories and immigrant families, and I've married into one and everything like that. Like I've heard all these different stories. I've heard how people have come here, and it didn't feel like any kind of exaggeration, right? And
Right.
that's because you're telling that from your heart, from your experience, um, and then you're changing it, right? You're telling a story that's inspired by parts of your life and people, but you're not exaggerating anything. all this is real. Nothing in this was ridiculous. Where I was like, that seems a little far fetched. Like it was clearly from the heart and from your truth, right, and your experiences. So I loved. So I don't know if you've listened to any episodes this year, Abhi, but my goal was to bring just like award-winning, incredible stories onto this for this year, and like just another one. Like because at the end of the year we do a game of the year of what we played. And I was like, I'm gonna make it as hard as possible for myself. And this is slotting right up there. Like it's gonna be a rough go of things.
Yeah.
But did you guys have anything else you wanted to comment on the game itself before we
I had
go
one
into
last
questions?
couple of questions.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Just as since we're at the end of the game, I think you said in an interview one time that you got a piece of feedback that this is a game someone will want to call their mom afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And I definitely got that feeling. I definitely wanted to call my mom and talk to her about everything going on and stuff like that. I guess my question, I think it's two parts, is like, what's the most important lesson you either learned from your parents or family over the years? And then ultimately, what do your parents and family, friends, all that think of the game? Like when you showed it to them, or when you told them about it?
Yeah. I think the older I get, so it's not a lesson I learned from my parents, but I'm just, the older I get, the more in awe I am of them. Because when you're younger, uh, a lot of doors are open, and you have the arrogance. Um, Life affords you to have the arrogance to be like, if I was in that situation, I would be different. And slowly the doors start closing as you get older and older, and then you realize your parents may have done even better than what you could even dream to have done in that situation. They have to handle like much more stressful situations. You remember that, and what you thought was, them slipping or something was actually them handling it with a lot of grace, because it's quite a bit far from me right now. They've been in tougher situations, in bleaker conditions, and they've really pulled through. And in retrospect, I think I'm able to appreciate those things more, and understand. Like people say, I think like when you get older, you understand your limitations of your parents, and definitely, I think that was my early 20s. But now I'm 31, and I'm also seeing like, man, how did my parents just deal with this? How did they do all of this that I'm dealing with, and also more, And yeah, I think there's a lot to learn from them for sure. In regards to how they learned about the game, it's a bit of a funny story, because I think um, my my parents weren't super supportive about a video game career. So around university time, I decided to go into computer science because it satisfied what my parents wanted. But what I actually wanted was to like get into like some big studio as a computer programmer, right? So like I was still secretly in game dev, but they just thought like, oh, he's a software engineer. And then once I did go into mobile games and stuff like that, like my dad was increasingly uncomfortable with that idea, and all of that. But around the time, even before Venba, there's a couple games that I made like locally that did like well, or featured in a newspaper and stuff like that, and he kind of came around to it. But because of that, like, oh, this is what I'm working on, is not something I could ever talk to my parents about like straight away. There was a big gap there, right? And So it's not that I meant to hide working on Venba from them, but it just never really occurred to me, because it's like, oh, they won't understand, they don't like video games. And I was working as a software engineer for my day job at the time. And at nights I would work on Venba, and slowly it became this bigger and bigger thing. Until one point, um, Venba was written about in a newspaper in India. And my uncle read it, and he was like, game developer, Toronto, Abhi. He's like, wait, I know someone.
I know that guy.
There's only so many.
There's only, yeah. So he calls up my dad, and that's how my dad came to know about the game. And he's like, wait, that's this is you. And I think he had a little bit. Both my parents had a little bit of regret that um, they didn't really facilitate that they had to find out like this. So after that, they kind of took it their mission to be very supportive about that, and even then, it was really weird for me to like talk to them about it, just because we hadn't. Um, and once the game came out, I think what helped was um because they saw the trailer and everything, but they still didn't understand, like, because it was very removed from their idea of what video games were, which is the Halos and
All
Uncharted
right.
that they saw me playing. And It's not until so they're like, wait, these kind of things can be a game, or like people buy this kind of stuff, and all of that. But it's not until the game came out and Tamil YouTubers from back home streamed the game in Tamil,
Mm.
and like reacted to it, cried to it, showed there are streams with them playing with their parents and stuff like that. It's not until that happened that those streamers did a better job of communicating why this game works for them than I
Mm.
ever could to my parents. And they're like, okay, I see. Okay, the games like this exist. I see. Because it needed to come in their medium. And now my dad is like giving me game ideas, and he's asking, what are you gonna do on your next one? Stuff like that.
Love
So
that.
it's been
I
fun.
love
Yeah.
that. That's a great story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jess, I would love for you to play with this with your mom. You guys would
I
be
think we
so
cried.
emotional.
Yeah. No, I did actually, like, this was a game where I did call my mom immediately afterwards. It took me, because I texted Eric that I started playing, and then I finished it, and then I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, how are you? I miss you. and then and then I remembered, I was like, oh shoot, I gotta text Eric. Hey, by the way, it took me an hour. Like,
Yeah.
but I
That's
think my mom and I would probably cry or just be like, "That's sweet.
yeah.
Don't ever hate me."
Yeah, please don't hate me. Yeah, this was just an A plus game. It's it was so well done, and I'm glad I waited till now because it's one thing to play a game on your own and you know just kind of sit with it, which is nice. I've done that plenty in my life, but now having this platform to be able to be like, go play this game. It's on I think it's on Game Pass. I think it's on like PSN's whatever their thing is called now. Like it's available everywhere. It's a perfect game to play. Like and like you were saying, some people just kind of need to see like this is what games can be, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's this little bite-sized story with lots to do, and it's got a good achievement hunting too. I did a little bit of that. Those
Yeah.
were
Yeah,
fun. Like being able
yeah.
to go through everything perfectly is really cool. Do we have any other questions about the game directly before we kind of ask some questions about the future, what you're working on and things?
I had one little comment about the achievements, and then one like question.
Mhm.
The achievement of snooping through Kevin's phone and scrolling through all the text messages caught me by so surprise, because I was like, I wonder if I could scroll through. I can. I
Mhm.
read all the messages, and then I got the achievement of like
Right.
snooping. I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
Got called out.
that was just
Yeah.
really fun. But my question, from like idea to it being like launched and created, like how long did it take? Like,
Yeah. So I'll tell you how long Sam thought it'll take when I pitched him the idea. He said, "Oh, it sounds like a pretty small game. I think what I like about it the most is the scope. I think it'll take us 4 months," is what he said. Uh, and this was in the beginning of 2020,
Okay.
and we launched 2023,
Yeah.
right? So I think there's a lot of challenges, and the game also changed significantly, but also we were working like part-time, and like it was mostly me for a good amount of time, uh, and the in 2020 I made a vertical slice for the game, and it had no dialogue. It was meant to be like vignettes, uh, with pause with cooking,
Mm.
and so it would be even shorter than what it was now. And we found that publishers weren't biting, and it was really hard to get that game funded. Um, and then we're like, okay, what can we do to make this feel a bit more of a traditional game? And okay, can we make it like a visual novel with like cooking elements? Would that sit a bit better? So it took us some time to find the game's voice, and but during that process, we were also working other jobs. So like it was like mostly me working on the weekends and weeknights. Um, and even after that, like making games is hard. So like this was a multi-platform simship release, and this was the first time we ever released a video game. So
Yeah.
a lot of those challenges, a lot of the achievements you guys are talking about was a lot of pain for us to like implement and like test and get it certified and all of that. So it took a while for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's a hell of a like thing to bite on for your first.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna release it on everything all at once at the same time.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Like that's very brave.
It'll be all right.
Yeah. That's awesome. But yeah, this is an incredible game. We're very happy that you were able to join us for the conversation. But for the future, are you able to disclose what you're working on now? What are future plans?
I'm not able to disclose exactly what I'm working on, but I think we announced, I believe, the last Summer Games Fest that the developers of Among Us, um, they they're called Inner Slot, and they formed a publishing branch called Outer Slot, and where they fund a lot of different indie projects, and we were lucky enough to be funded by them shortly after Venba's launch. They're great, they're phenomenal. So we are working on um, a game that is set around the time period of 200 to 300, 200 BC to 300 AD. And it's set in Tamil Nadu, where I'm from. And it's about a lot of things, but it's a very different game than what Venba is. That's for sure.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. We'll definitely keep an eye on that because that was awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And then just like my last question is, if you were to make like an ideal game, budget completely doesn't matter, things like that. What is it? What's something that you would like to do? You know, you can be as vague as you want, obviously, if you want to keep that in your back pocket for the future.
I have like two answers to this question. So I'll answer your question at face value, which is that I'm a big fan of like Tamil cinema, and there's a lot of references to that in Venba and something like that. Especially their action movies and how bombastic it can be, and all of that. So I think I would like to make like a heart of the sleeve, like what does it feel like to watch a movie but like in a game format, like kind of thing. I like, full with like musicals and like, all of those kind of things, like fully choreographed dances and all of those kind of things in a video game format. I think I would really like that if there's no conditions. And then the other way I think I want to answer your question is, with Venba, we had a $0 budget because it was mostly self funded until we were able to get, money from platforms and other funding opportunities and stuff like that. And slowly and surely, we like grew the team and we got it to where we are now. But that meant that throughout Venba, I had to deal with the financial realities of like, okay, we don't have much money. What can we do? And all of those things. So that felt very constrained. And after Venba and Venba's success, and after the next game was also funded, we are in a very relatively healthy position compared to where the industry is at right now. So it was a point where I was like, we could make anything we want. Like, so we pitched games that were like sky high and like, in many ways was less constrained. And I will say that that was not conducive to a good game design process. So I once again had to learn that like actually freedom of choice is not a good thing for me specifically when I'm making games. And if I'm given constraints, that's when I work best. So if I was given an infinite budget, I think it might end up becoming a trap.
You're like, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Put me in a
Maybe
box
less
so I can.
sensitive.
Yeah, put me in a
It's kind
box so I can poke holes through it just a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm working outside of it. Yeah, I
it's
totally
kind of like
get that.
indie movies, right? Where like those movies get more successful because they have to figure out how to
Yeah.
deal with their budget. Like you
Yeah.
just get more ingenuity out of that.
Yeah.
When you have big budget movies, you have so much more people input, and you're shooting for the moon, but you're not getting to the meat of the situation of what you're trying to
Yeah.
get at with the game.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
I have one.
Okay.
Just like what's like a game that you've been like hyper fixated on recently? Just like one of your favorite games recently.
Ooh, man. Anytime this question comes, I always wonder, like, is this a cool enough game for me to answer this question with?
Game's
You
cool.
can. It can be literally anything.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm always talking about like Minecraft.
yeah.
Nice. Right now, I think I've been playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I've been really enjoying it. I picked it up specifically because I saw like it has a very simulator aspect to it because they're trying to commit to the period that the game is from, and given the parallels to the kind of game I'm making now, not that it's anywhere close in scope or size, but just the period accuracy that they've gone to recreate. I wanted to see how they did that and balance the game. It's very fun. It's you know. Brewing a potion means they take that very seriously. You actually do brew a potion, and I love. To me, it's very reminiscent of like PS2 era games, where like they're not afraid to try um, new things while relatively being a smaller budget game. So I'm really enjoying my time with that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard great things about it. I have strung together, I've said this multiple times on the show, I've strung together just like 80 plus hour games like back to back to back. So
Yeah.
I'm not allowing myself to play long games this year like on
Yeah.
my own time. So I've been avoiding that one, but I'm sure I will play it someday and be like, "Oh man, I wish I would have played this at the time because it looks phenomenal and it looks
Yeah.
hilarious at the same time."
Yes. Yeah. There's a tutorial where like it teaches you how to parry and stuff like that. And then when you do parry, you find out like you get punished for it. Like you're not supposed to. Like that's not an efficient way of doing
I
combat.
love that.
So like I just love games with friction like that. So
Yeah.
it's really up my alley. Yeah.
That's so great. I love that. Well, awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to plug any socials, websites where people can find your work, where they can get updates on what you're doing?
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. It was really great questions. I really enjoyed talking about the game. Um, you can find me on Blue Sky. I think we're mostly there. Just beside games on Blue Sky. So we should be there for now. If we branch out to more platforms, we'll definitely post it.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure that's in the show notes as well. And then Chris, where can people find you? I always love hearing your perfectly rehearsed social plugs.
Yeah, I'm Chris. My channel is The Nerdlies, TheNerdlys. We are on Twitch Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday evenings, and pretty much on all social platforms as The Nerdlies, at The Nerdlies.
Nice. And Jess, your turn.
You can find us everywhere at Short Long Pod. You could literally search it up. We're Before the Golfers. And everything will be linked in the show notes anyway. We're most active on Blue Sky. And in our bios of everywhere, you'll find our link tree that can take you to our corner of the internet.
Yeah.
We did a little rebrand.
We did. Yeah, corner of the internet. That's our new Discord. Since the last time we recorded, I've rebranded our Discord. So that's it's Cody is what it is now. So feel free to join us there. It's a fun place. And then I stream on Twitch on Mondays, every Monday, sometime around somewhere. It's somewhere between 6 and 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time currently. Sometimes it's 6:30, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7. I don't know. And then if I don't know when this episode is going to come out. I probably am no longer streaming with Chris because he got sick of me. But we're currently streaming Split Fiction on Wednesdays.
Nice.
I don't know. Yeah. So those are plenty of things you can do for us. And as always, take care on your way.
Bye.
That was very cool. Thank you so much for joining us.
I had a great time. All three of you, really great questions, really great conversations. Thank you so much.
I'd love to hear. Yeah.